Hey, what's up, Party Chat Sports? It's one of your hosts, Caleb Gill, doing a solo episode for you here to kick off your week on this Monday. And it's going to be another mock draft. It's going to be my first full first round mock draft, though, of the season as we are getting closer. We're only a couple weeks away now from the NFL draft in Green Bay. And that is crazy because it does feel like not long ago we were just, it feels like just yesterday we were recapping the Super Bowl. And now, I mean, everything that has happened between now and then, quarterback movement, question marks on who's going to go first overall, the waves that we've ridden to get to where we're at today, or where we're recording this on April 6th. And there's still a lot that could change between now and the draft. There's a lot that could change between now and the time that card is turned in. There could be a trade for that first overall pick night one. That could happen as the Titans are on the clock. For the sake of argument, today there will be no trades in this mock draft. It's going to be the full 32 picks in the first round. And I mentioned that there's going to be no trades, but I don't think that it looks, I know a lot of, or the last two mock drafts I've done, the top 10 mock drafts that I've done, I've had mentioned the Titans possibly moving off that number one overall pick. I did it in my top 10 mock draft that went up a couple weeks ago, where I had the Giants moving up for that first overall pick. I don't think that's going to happen. I do ultimately think the Titans are going to stay put. So let's get right into that. I'm going to try to share my screen here. And hopefully this works the way I want it to. Okay. Allow this time. All right. So we should be good to go. I'm looking at the board. Let's get right in the draft lobby here. The Titans do hold the cards here early on because they don't have to draft a quarterback. They do need one. But like I've outlined before, they could ultimately move off that first overall pick, acquire some capital. Maybe you still are able to land an Abdul Carter or a Travis Hunter. But it does seem as of late, I mean, they canceled pre-draft interviews with Shedeur Sanders. It feels like they're going all in on Cam Ward. So let's just make him the first overall pick right now. And I know I mentioned the cards are in the Titans' hands. And it is, because they could ultimately decide to move off that first overall pick. However, I think this is where the real draft starts for these teams. The most interesting thing that I thought, or that I read, I should say, I'm not going to take credit for this quote, a couple of weeks ago was, this is a bad quarterback class when the three teams with the top three picks all need quarterbacks, and yet there's really not a lot of noise surrounding quarterbacks and those three teams. If it's not Cam Ward, I don't think, there's going to be mock drafts. There's going to be national people that try fitting quarterbacks into the top 10 because it's like, oh, they need a quarterback. So they're going to ultimately give the Browns or the Giants a quarterback. If it's Shedeur Sanders, if it's Jackson Dart, a guy that probably isn't worth that pick just because they need a quarterback. I ultimately don't operate that way. So you're not going to see that in this draft. You're going to see me go more so, what's the needs? Where's the value? So you look at the Browns here, number 2 overall, Cam Ward's off the board. Now, if Cam Ward fell to 2, say the Titans draft Abdul Carter, and the Browns are sitting there with the second overall pick, yeah, you run that card in for Cam Ward, I think. But you're sitting here now, do you take Abdul Carter? I kind of thought maybe they would earlier in the offseason, but that's when I thought Myles Garrett was going to be gone. You look at this ultimately, I think, will come down to the 2 Colorado players. Do you like Shedeur Sanders enough to take him here at number 2? Or do you like the versatility of Travis Hunter? Do you like the Heisman Trophy winner? And I think you look at that coaching staff. Kevin Stefanski's a smart offensive mind. Jim Schwartz is a brilliant defensive guy there on the defensive side for the Browns. They might be able to maximize the potential of Travis Hunter. So number 2 overall, give me the two-way player. He's listed as a corner. It sounds like from his pro day he mostly ran wide receiver drills. So we'll see how whoever drafts Travis Hunter is going to have a plan on how they're going to utilize him. And I'm very curious. It's going to be a huge tell when Roger Goodell comes out and he says, for example, here with the Browns, with the second overall pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Cleveland Browns select. Is he going to say cornerback? Is he going to say wide receiver? Travis Hunter out of Colorado. That's going to be a huge tell on what the Browns or whoever drafts him decides to do with him. If they view him as a wide receiver, they're going to have wide receiver Travis Hunter written on that card. If they view him as a corner, they're going to have cornerback written on that card. So that we're going to get an idea right from the moment Goodell says his name. We'll have a good understanding of where teams view him and what position they expect him to play. Now, there's a scenario where they just say football player or like athlete or something like that. There's a scenario. I don't expect that to be the case, but you never know. So number 1, number 2, got Cam Ward, Travis Hunter. The Giants sitting there, they need a quarterback. But I just don't think Shedeur Sanders is worth a 3rd overall pick. I don't think he fits what Brian Daboll wants to do. I'm not a big Shedeur Sanders fan. I ultimately don't. I think he would have been a better fit for the Browns than the Giants. Browns passed on him for another Colorado player. So the Giants are sitting here with 3, and they are firmly in the hot seat. So you could see them getting desperate and just taking a quarterback to take a quarterback in hopes of saving their jobs. I do think they make the right decision here, and they draft the best player available, Abdul Carter, the edge rusher out of Penn State. He's a freak athlete. He's going to make some noise. He's going to have some big plays there for Big Blue. It's just a matter of, is he going to make those big plays with Daboll as a head coach or with whoever succeeds Daboll? If you have watched my previous 2 mock drafts, I have been pretty consistent with this 4th overall pick in the Patriots. I've been going Will Campbell out of LSU. As of late, the more intel I read and hear about Will Campbell, I don't know how much I like that fit. The Patriots need a tackle. They need offensive line, but ultimately they need a tackle. Will Campbell probably projects more as an NFL guard. He's got shorter arms, but I think he's like, if he were to play tackle, they'd be historically small arms. Now, that's not to say it can't happen. That was said about Elijah Vera Tucker. Elijah Vera Tucker was a better guard than a tackle coming out of college or prospect because of his arm size. And AVT can play for every position on the offensive line. He has, except for center. But ultimately, he's a better guard. I think that's where Will Campbell's going to be too. I think he might be able to play both, but the team probably is going to want him to play guard. So if you're the Patriots, you need a tackle. I think it's going to be Armand Membo. He's the best right tackle in this class. He is a pure right tackle. They need offensive line. They need tackle. You go with a guy that's not a question mark at the position. Will Campbell, you don't know what position he's going to play on the offensive line. With Membu, you know he is a right tackle. You slot him in there, and he'll be fine. With Campbell, there's a little bit more projection. I still think offensive line for the Patriots, you got to protect Drake May. And I'm switching it up. I think it's going to be Armand Membu out of Missouri. For the Jaguars pick here, I've done two things. I've gone with Ted McMillan and I've gone Mason Graham. Both solid prospects here for the Jaguars. It just depends. Do you like Ted? I mean, if you're Liam Cohen, do you want a bigger body wide receiver like what you had in Mike Evans last year, or do you want the best player available? I know PFF here has Ted McMillan ranked number 3. I think Mason Graham is a better player available, and they need the defensive line to help. You could probably get, and this is a deep class for defensive line, so you could probably get a good defensive lineman round 2 if it's a Darius Alexander or another player like that, Tyleik Williams. You could probably get a good defensive lineman early round 2. I think you got to go best player available here, and PFF doesn't have it this way. I do. Mason Graham, the defensive lineman out of the team up north. With the 6th pick, this is where you could possibly see a Shedeur Sanders. He might be the pick here at 6. I still don't think that's the case. I am going to be consistent. There's going to be 1 quarterback drafted in the top 10, 2 drafted in the first round. That's it. So a little preview on how many quarterbacks I think are going to go in this mock draft today. 2. How many are going to go in the top 10? 1. So at the 6th pick, being in the top 10, I think that's too early for Shedeur. Plus, you have Geno Smith. You just paid Geno money, good money, $40 million. So Shedeur would be a fit, but I don't think that's the right move. Now, that could be like a Falcons scenario last year where they paid Kirk and then they drafted Penix as an insurance policy. I don't think the Raiders are going to do that. I think Pete Carroll's going to want to win now. So you get the best player or you get a star. And I give Cam credit for being one of the first people on this. Ashton Jeanty to the Raiders feels right. Cam had it in our first mock draft that we all did as a group. Cam had the Raiders drafting Jeanty, and I like it. It makes a lot of sense to me. You have Pete Carroll, who, when he was with Seahawks early on, it was Marshawn Lynch leading the show. He knows the power of having a strong running back. Go back to his days at USC with Reggie Bush. He knows the effectiveness of having a good running back. So with his first pick as the Raiders head coach, give him the best one available, and he's going to be a stud. He's going to be so good, I think. And you're going to have to score points. You have to score points in the AFC West. You're competing with Mahomes, Herbert. If Bo Nix is anything, Jeanty's going to help you get there. So 6th pick, Ashton Jeanty, running back out of Boise State. Number 7 overall, I kind of went back and forth here. Do you go Tet? You still need a wide receiver if you're the Jets. We need a wide receiver so bad. But with Armand Menbu gone, I think there's only one option here. They need an offensive lineman. Yes. I think you take your tackle day 2. Because Will Campbell, now if you view him as a tackle, you could take him here. I just don't think they would. This is the pick I made for the Jets last week. Not last week, the last draft I made. I've done this a couple different times. I think Tyler Warren's going to be the pick. It just feels like the pick there for the Jets. He's going to be a solid weapon for Justin Fields. He can be an extension of he can help be an extension of the offensive line there on the run game. He's a solid all-around player. He's not as good as Brock Bowers. Like, I'm not brocked up for Tyler Warren, but we're warm. We're definitely warm. So give me Tyler Warren, the tight end out of Penn State for the New York Jets. Number 8 overall, the Carolina Panthers. I've gone Mike Green before. I mean, you need an edge, you need defense, but you also need to see if Bryce Young is your guy. So what's the best way to do that? You give him weapons. So you give him the best weapon available here. You don't even think twice. Tet McMillan is the guy for the Carolina Panthers, and you just screwed your division rival in the Saints, who's probably sitting there thinking, we're going to get Tet. We're going to get Tet here at 9. Sorry, Saints. That's who I had going to in the last mock draft was the Saints, but that was in a move up because the Saints were going to have to jump the Panthers. I think the Panthers are going to express a lot of interest, and you need weapons in this league. So give me 8th overall, Tet McMillan. Just wetting the whistle there. Trademark Drew Nelson, by the way. It's been a minute since I've heard any one of us use that. Anyways, with the 9th pick, now that Tet McMillan's gone, what do the Saints do? Well, do you reach for a running back in Hampton? Probably not. Do you reach for a wide receiver like Luther Burden, Emeka Ibuka? I mean, here at 9, you could do that. The Saints, I just never know. They are a hard team to guess and predict. So I'm going to go with Mike Green, the edge out of Marshall. He's a quick guy. He's not that strong, or as strong as he probably should be for an edge, but his speed should help. I think that's a solid pick there. And you're just kind of, if you're the Saints, you're just sitting there, it's like, damn, now what? Because everybody that you probably liked is gone. Tet's gone. Probably could have used a Tyler Warren, Ashton Genty maybe. There's a lot of these guys. They probably would have liked Travis Hunter. They probably would have considered Shedeur Sanders. If Shedeur Sanders goes in the top 10, it's either going to be the Browns or the Saints. I ultimately don't think the Saints do that. They probably wait till day 2 to draft the quarterback. But Mike Green just kind of feels right here for the Saints. So the Bears. The Bears, I've been going with offense in these mock drafts. I had them taking Ashton Genty. I had them taking Armand Membu. They're both gone. Tyler Warren's gone. If you're looking at the board, I mean, do you really need a Luther Burden or a Emeka Ibuka? I don't think so. Offensive line, you pretty much shored up. Now, I know I had them taking Armand Membu last week, or last time. That was a couple weeks ago, I think. I don't think they go offensive line if Membu isn't there. Now, granted, I could definitely see a scenario where Ben Johnson's like, I can get something out of Will Campbell. We'll figure it out. Let's just get him in here and we'll figure it out. But they need a safety as well. They need some defense. And in the NFC North, you have the Vikings, you have the Lions. Who knows if you have the Packers? But you definitely have at least 2 strong offenses potentially. If J.J. McCarthy lives up to the hype, that Vikings offense can be really good. The Lions offense, I mean, Ben Johnson knows better than anybody how good that offense can be. So you need some help there in the secondary. So with the 10th pick, Malachi Starks out of Georgia, all around solid safety. He's going to help shore up the secondary there. in Chicago. In San Francisco, boy, boy, do they need some help, man. At number 11, whew, there's a lot of ways they could go. Jahdae Brown, Will Campbell, Jihad Campbell. They need some linebackers next to Fred Warner. Will Johnson. Do they go offense? Do they get a Mecca Buka? That's who I had them taken in our group mock draft a couple weeks ago because they need somebody to help fill Debo's or take those reps that Debo had. But because you need pretty much everything on the offensive line, you take the best offensive lineman available and Will Campbell out of LSU, just give him in the building and figure it out. So I think the 49ers, you got to keep Brock Purdy upright. You're about to pay him some big money. He's about to get some big boy dollars. Keep him upright, keep him healthy, and protect that man. And Purdy, we trust. 12 with the Cowboys is interesting. I like them going flashy. I had them trade up for Ashton Genty a couple weeks ago. But there's really not flashy here. Maybe it's Burden, maybe it's Ibuka, maybe, I don't know. Do you get another tight end like Colson Loveland next to Jake Ferguson? Or maybe Kelsey, as Drew likes to mention. I'm going to go with, so Drew did a Cowboys mock draft episode that went up a couple days ago. Make sure you go check that out at Party Chat Sports. And in that, he had them going with a Michigan player. And the secondary for the Cowboys has taken some hits. So help shore up the secondary, draft Will Johnson out of Michigan, and his slide drops. There's a couple of these guys that are sliding a little bit, and that's to be expected. Players slide all the time. So it's going to happen. The Dolphins here at 13, they just had their left tackle, Teron Armstead, retired. I don't know if the Dolphins were planning for that, but either way, Dolphins are screwed up front. Screwed. They need offensive line help like nobody's business, and they've always needed that. Tua can't stay upright. He struggles. So you look at the options. Josh Simmons, he's a versatile player. Kelvin Banks is going to be a solid tackle. Gray Zabel, out of North Dakota State. That's probably the four you're looking at here at 13. And I think you need a franchise left tackle now. You need tackle, and I think Kelvin Banks can fit that mold, fit that build. So the Dolphins draft the Texas tackle, 13th overall. Was that where? I need to look something up now. Let's do it here, actually. Laremy Tunsil. That might have been about the same spot he was drafted. I don't remember. He was drafted first round. 13, yeah. How about that? 13th overall back in 2016, almost 10 years later. 9 years, but almost 10 years later. The Dolphins pretty much in the same exact spot, same pick, needing an offensive tackle. And that Laremy Tunsil thing was just wild. That draft day gas mask scenario, wild. But be kind of crazy if they made the same positional pick 9 years later. With the same pick overall if they stay at 13. The Colts probably going to stay here at 14. They could try move. If Tyler Warren drops, I could see them moving up for Tyler Warren. But I don't think that's ultimately going to happen. There's a guy I like a little bit later here. Solid linebacker. And really, there's not much that separates him from an Abdul Carter. So you get a solid defensive player. The Colts need a lot of things. Just find good players. And PFF has him a little bit lower, but I'm going to take Jalen Walker, the linebacker out of Georgia, here for the Colts. I think he's a good fit. He can kind of play everywhere. Just get him on the field, let him ball. The Falcons, you have a defensive-minded head coach, but you also have a young quarterback. Which takes the precedent here? Do you prioritize the need at wide receiver, or do you prioritize, we have a couple of these defensive guys that we ranked higher? If it's Jahad Campbell, if it's Jahdae Brown, or Barron, sorry. So what do? Well, kind of going back and forth on this, actually. This is tough. Because I'm thinking either Emeka Egbuka or Jahad Campbell. That's my thought process right now. In Raheem Morris' system, you probably need the linebacker. Wide receivers, I feel like both these positions, you can definitely find quality players later in the draft. Give me Jahad Campbell out of Alabama. Just keep Campbell there in the South. The Arizona Cardinals. They need defense. They have a defensive-minded head coach as well, but also got to keep Kyler Murray upright. So I'm thinking offensive line here for the Cardinals. And I don't know if I've mentioned it on here before, but one thing to watch out for is who the Cardinals' offensive line coach is. In case you didn't know, if I could spell, apparently I can't. I can't spell. This was okay. It's Justin Fry, who was previously the offensive line coach at Ohio State. He's going to have a lot of say in that room when this pick's on the board. When they're picking 16 and they need an offensive lineman and they're debating, do we take a Josh Simmons? Do we draft a Gray Zabel? Or do we go defense? I think his voice is going to be huge and prominent. Josh Simmons probably figures to be more of a guard than a tackle. And nobody would know better than Fry, than his offensive line coach from college. He's got the best intel on this guy compared to everybody because he saw him every day. So if the Cardinals' new offensive line coach believes Josh Simmons can translate to guard, they should do it. They should run that in. It's going to be a little bit of a discussion, but again, nobody's going to know better than him. So 16th overall, Josh Simmons, and the Cardinals continue to add Ohio State players. They did a couple years ago with Paris Johnson. They did it last year with Marvin Harrison, and now another Ohio State guy heads out to Arizona. Excuse me. All right. Back half of the draft now, of this first round. The Bengals, what was the bitch last year about the Bengals? Defense. Defense. You can't pay everybody, and they need defense. Well, they pretty much paid everybody on offense. They just desperately need to make sure they hit on their defensive selections. You cannot take an offensive player here if you're the Bengals. You have to go defense. And there's question marks right now around Trey Hendrickson, Is he going to stay? Is he going to get traded? And even if Trey Hendrickson is a Bengal, you're still going to need another edge rusher on the other side. So you draft somebody on the defensive line or a linebacker. And the two linebackers that I probably would take in Jalen Walker or Jahad Campbell are both gone. I think you go edge, you go James Pierce out of Tennessee, and you help with or without Trey Hendrickson. Pierce is going to make an impact. He's going to have to. And he'll probably make more of an impact with Hendrickson as a Bengal because that's where most of the attention is going to go. Either way, get that defense some damn help, Cincinnati. Seattle, you lost DK Metcalf. You acquired Sam Darnold. So do you go offense? Or do you go with the positional need of edge? I think this is another edge spot. Let's not think too hard about it. Donovan out of Boston College. I'm not even going to, again, I butchered his name a couple weeks ago. Donovan E, we'll say, out of Boston College. We'll draft him to the Seattle Seahawks with a 18th overall pick. The Buccaneers now. Todd Bowles loves his defensive backs. They just straight up need defense. And you look at the analysis here. Defense, 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 defense. They desperately need defense. You could draft a wide receiver because, yes, they have guys now. But when you're drafting, you're not just drafting for 2025. A lot of times you have to draft for 2026 and beyond as well. How many more years left do you have of Chris Godwin and Mike Evans? Probably not many. So you do have to factor that in. If Ted McMillan was here, I'd say, yeah, probably. But Barron has had a pretty lengthy slide. Let's end that right here with him going to play for Todd Bowles and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. With 20th overall pick, you could go Marion Hampton. You could go any of these three wide receivers here, Burden, Buka, Golden, any of these. Pretty much this entire screen right here that you see is a potential prospect. And I mean, technically, they're all potential prospects, but they all fit the Broncos' needs. I don't think they'll take another running back this high. They probably wait. Sean Payton can kind of find running backs later. Defensive line, I mean, you would probably lean into wanting to get Bo Nix some help. So then it's which flavor do you prefer? Do you prefer Burden? Do you prefer Abuka? Do you prefer Golden? Here, little favoritism on my end. I'm a little partial, but I'm going to go Mecca Abuka. I think he's a solid all-around wide receiver. You can line him up anywhere. Good route runner, good hands, and he's going to help Bo Nix. Him, Cortland Sutton, if they get anything out of Troy Franklin, like that could be okay. That's a decent offense that can score some points if Bo Nix is anything. Oh boy. Shit. All right, 21. 21. What do the Steelers do? Doesn't matter what selection I make here, I already know I'm going to get some pushback. They don't need a wide receiver. Hampton's a maybe, but I think, and the guys all did a really good job of discussing the running back class. Go make sure you watch that video as well at Party Chat Sports, where they kind of go through a deep dive and rank the running back prospects in this year's draft. My takeaway is you don't need to draft a running back this high. So even if you love a guy like Hampton, you could take another guy later on. So probably not a pick here. There's really not a tackle or safety that's worth it. The quarterback thing's interesting, though. So if you look, I mean, maybe you go in Xavier Watts for safety, but this is probably your list that you're looking at if you're the Steelers. I know At one point, Dylan really liked this defensive line room for the Steelers. So Kenneth Grant, Walter Nolan, Derek Harmon, I know was a guy that Dylan liked a while back. Darius Alexander, like there's good all defensive linemen here. But let's bring this group back up again. Let's bring back quarterback, running back, offensive tackle, and safety. So it looks like the Steelers are going to get Aaron Rodgers. It does. That's probably a 1-year thing. So that's why quarterback is interesting for the Steelers. You know, with the first round pick, you have that guy under contract for 5 years. He doesn't have to play, especially if Aaron Rodgers is there. You're not expecting the quarterback, any quarterback you take in this draft, if it's round 1 or round 7, to play week 1. Now, 4 plays into the season, things can change. Not that I know anything about that, but you're not expecting, if you draft a quarterback here, it's a future investment. It's not a now fix, it's a future investment. It's an investment for the future if you draft a quarterback here. If you draft a running back, that's a Aaron Rodgers complementary piece. But after watching Aaron Rodgers last year, he really doesn't involve the running back a lot. I don't know how useful that would be. Plus, Arthur Smith likes handing the ball off to Cordell Patterson instead. Offensive line, I can see it. I can see offensive line. It's going to be Gray Zabel or Xavier Watts, I'm thinking. It's kind of what I'm thinking here. So what do we do? Well, with the 21st pick, the NFL draft, the Pittsburgh Steelers select neither of those two guys, Shedeur Sanders. This is a fall for Sanders. And I think if he is there at 21, the Steelers are going to say, oh shit, this guy, the second best quarterback in this class, fell into our lap. And he's going to have a chance to learn behind Aaron Rodgers for a year. You could talk yourself into that. You like that outcome. You like that possibility. Feels like you feel good about it. It's not quite Kenny Pickett because Kenny Pickett was drafted right after Ben retired. Kenny Pickett didn't. Kenny Pickett had Mitch Trubisky to mentor from. Sanders will have Aaron Rodgers. In theory, that's better. I like the fit. With 21st pick, Shedeur Sanders finally has a home in Pittsburgh. 22 overall, the LA Chargers. Sorry. The LA Chargers, have a couple decisions to make here. Do you go wide receiver? You could go Luther Burden. Or do you go a Michigan guy? You choose between Kenneth Grant or Colston Loveland. I would think Harbaugh is going to try pushing for his Michigan guys. These are guys that played well for him. Colston Loveland fills in the Michigan gap and also the weapon thing. You can never have enough weapons in this league. You just can't. So I think Colston Loveland out of Michigan is going to be the pick for Harbaugh and the Chargers. Packers, I feel like their wide receiver need isn't mentioned enough. They have some young guys that you can kind of talk yourself into. But, I mean, PFF notes it here. It's noted here in the analysis of like how often wide receivers are going. Well, it's a good chunk of the time that wide receivers being drafted in these mock drafts. And it's for good reason. They do need wide receiver. It doesn't feel like it a lot, I don't think, but they need one. So don't overthink it. the best wide receiver on the board, happens to be the best player on the board, according to PFS rankings. Luther Burden, the third out of Missouri, is a Green Bay Packer. Staying in the NFC North, Minnesota Vikings, they did a good job this offseason fixing up their defensive line. I do think they continue to do so. They really do. I mean, running back here, as much fun as it could be, I don't think this is a spot for the Vikings to take a running back. I mean, I could see them taking a guy like a Travion or a Quinshon Judkins. I could see the Vikings drafting one of them later, or Sketabo, RG Harvey. Like, this is a good running back class. The Vikings are going to be able to get their guy later. Right now, I'm not going to do the Michigan guy for Cam. I'm going to do Walter Nolan, defensive line, Ole Miss. The Texans probably should go offense. I mean, it's the only two needs are offense, wide receiver and offensive line. For some reason, the Texans decided to completely gut their offensive line. It didn't make a lot of sense to me. I still am trying to figure that out. But they don't have Stephon Diggs. Oh, their wide receivers got hurt last year. You probably need another guy in the room. So Matthew Golden goes to the Texans. Probably going to just get through the rest of these picks here. With the 26th pick, the Rams, I thought about a quarterback here. Like, if Shedeur Sanders fell to 26, maybe. But with the contract that Stafford just got, Sean McVay probably doesn't want to develop a guy right now. He wants to protect the guy he has. Best way to do that is drafting offensive line. So, best offensive lineman is out of North Dakota State. Take him. Gray Zabel out of North Dakota State. Ravens, I feel like they always make good picks. And Shamir Stewart's a guy that probably shouldn't have fallen this far. He's a good edge. He's going to fill a need for the Ravens. They really don't have a lot of needs. They just need to be able to get after the quarterback. And the best guy to do that is out of Texas A&M. For the Lions, they also need an edge. I kind of thought Kenneth Grant here. Maybe wide receiver, but, like, are you really going... The best wide receiver right now is Alec Aomanor. I gotta learn some of these names, man. But Michael Williams, on the other side of Aiden Hutchinson, who's coming back from an injury, and I saw a video of him running the other day. He looks good. You still need another edge. One edge isn't good enough in this league. You need two minimum. So the Lions get their guy and make sure that the Philadelphia Eagles don't draft yet another Georgia player. So, another thing to keep in mind. The Commanders, I think this is the Omarion Hampton spot. So, there's some decent weapons, maybe in Aomanor, but, you draft or you sign Debo, you're kind of expecting him to be your number one or your wide receiver on the other side of Terry McLaurin. Offensive line here probably doesn't make sense with the guys available. Omarion Hampton, you could build with him and Jaden Daniels, you could have a really good ground game. You could. So, and maybe even round 7 you draft another running back if you're the Commanders. Like, that's a scenario too. But ultimately, I think Hampton does land somewhere in the first 32. And it's going to be with Washington. The Bills, let's not overthink this. They need an edge. Who's the best edge available? Also a guy out of Texas A&M. Don't want to talk too much about the Bills, so we move on to the Chiefs. The Chiefs need defensive line. They also need offensive line. Well, right now, you're looking, the top three guys on the board are all defensive linemen. Well, let's take a defensive lineman then. So who is your favorite? Who is, again, which flavor do you prefer? Are you a vanilla, a strawberry, a chocolate, cookies and cream, whatever flavor of ice cream you prefer? That's kind of I reference flavor a lot with wide receiver because sometimes you want a bigger guy. Sometimes you want a more lean guy. Do you want a slot? Do you want an X? Do you want what are you looking for? Kind of the same here with defensive line. Which flavor do you prefer? Do you want more of a 3-tech? Do you want a guy that's going to eat a lot of runs? What are you looking for? For the Chiefs, you probably just need the best guy you can get right next to Chris Jones. That's Kenneth Grant out of Michigan. And rounding out the top 30, or the first 32 picks, rounding out the first round here of the draft, there's no Georgia guys. There's no Georgia guys here for the Eagles. Who's the best Georgia player? We got go-aways, don't we? Holy crap. A lot of South Carolina. Yeah. So no Georgia guys. They are going to stay SEC though. They need defensive back. With Darius Slay gone, they have Cooper DeJean, they have Quinyon Mitchell, but Quinyon's the outside guy. Cooper DeJean's a slot corner or your nickel. Like, he's not really a guy you would want to put on the outside. You need that guy. So Trey Amos. And that's your first round. That is your first round. No, get rid of these damn ads. What's PFF think of my draft? I don't know. No, frankly, I don't give a shit. I can't get the full thing on here. Right. Dang it. Ultimately, there's going to be a lot that doesn't look like this, right? I think the first three, pretty set in stone. Patriots are going to be interesting on which offensive lineman they take. And then Steelers here with Shedeur Sanders. Do they really go the route of quarterback? Does Shedeur Sanders fall that far? I mean, I don't know. I really don't. But that's why we do these mock drafts. It's a lot of fun simulation type thing. And I mean, we got more draft content coming. Hopefully we've got a Vikings mock draft. I'll get a Jets mock draft. I'm sure we'll get a Steelers one. Go check out Drew's Cowboys mock draft video that he put up a couple days ago. Go also check out the running back discussion that the boys had regarding the running backs in this year's class and kind of, again, where they rank them. But again, we've got more content coming. We're still a couple weeks away from the NFL draft, so we've got time. We're going to get more things out there, and let's have some fun, baby. Let's have some fun. Make sure, again, you follow at Party Jets Sports. Make sure you check us out on Twitter, on YouTube, TikTok, anywhere and everywhere you get your content, podcasts, all that fun stuff. Everything at Party Jets Sports. Until next time, we'll see what we get up later this week in terms of videos. Hope you enjoy. Make sure you tell anyone you know that loves sports as much as we do, specifically football, as much as we do, to check us out. Again, all at Party Chat Sports. Peace.